on the next McDougall MD, a life-saving doctor. Is he a quack or a hero?
Join us and you be the judge.
This is Hello Channel.
Where would you go if the healthcare system failed you? Our guest today is in hot water with the medical establishment, but his patients call him a lifesaver. Is he a quack or a hero? You be the judge. Join me, Mary McDougall, and Dr. John right now on McDougall MD.
Good to see you again.
Yes, we've got a great show today, everybody.
You know, as a medical doctor, I have to tell you, the best way to stay out of trouble is to do what everybody else does. It's called the community standard of practice. If you hurt somebody, you go to court, what you use as a defense, well, everybody else in town treats the patient that way, and you get out of trouble. Now, if you do things different than your colleagues, even if you help them, you challenge, you get into trouble.
Yes, because you're going away from that standard.
But that's the kind of doctors that we need to get to people who have other answers, and we've got one of those today.
That's right, we do. Our very special guest on this edition of McDougall MD specializes in environmental medicine. Many of his patients consider him their last doctor of hope. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Joseph Kropp. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Good to have you, Dr. Kropp. You are an outsider. I've heard you kind of stepped across the line with environmental medicine.
Yes, I was accused that I do not follow the standard of practice in my whole 10 years trouble with the College of Physicians and Surgeons, which are the licensing body for the physicians.
So why is that? If I came to you, what would you do different? And
well,
if I came to you and said, I have fibromyalgia,
yes,
what would you do that would be different from, say, another doctor that I would go to?
Well, first of all, I will treat you exactly the same way as the normal standard allopathic doctor. I would have to rule out any kind of the visible and diagnosable conditions on you. But usually all those doctors have seen you before, and I already have the list from you, or I get letters from them, and you still not helped. So I will have to then apply to you the environmentally oriented medical history.
And what is environmental medicine?
And this is that each of the events in your, let's say, symptomatology, which you get headache, or you get, depressed, or you get stomach ache, it will be related to the situations in life.
The environment.
In the environment, as well as the diet. So let's say if you have the headache, I would just ask you how often you have the headache, where does it mostly appear, and so on. And then I will build up kind of the theory on this basis, because you may, for example, tell me that your headache is worse when you're going to the basement, and that time we will ask you, well, what's wrong with your basement?
So you're a detective in a way. So
It
try
is,
to figure it out.
It is
and
the
it's
detective.
a lot to do with
it
allergies?
is the detective work. It is a lot of to do with the allergies, a lot of to do with the sensitivities, because there is a specific criteria or specific description of allergy. Sensitivities are a little bit different in this.
So how common do you think this is? That people have these environmental sensitivities?
Well, I think
allergies.
It was allergies and disorders related to allergy or the immunological disturbance are very common.
Half the population, 80%, 20%? Any guesses?
Particularly the ones who are reacting specifically to chemicals is approximately 30%.
30% of the population reacts
of the population.
But people talk about carpets. Chemicals in carpets, chemicals in household detergents. That sort of thing.
Absolutely. This is the part of the my medicine. Okay, that first after the history. Okay, I obviously through the questionnaires I'm going to find out what kind of the carpet you have, how soon or how long ago did you move to the house, or how long do you live down there. If that's a new house, this is the potential trouble for everybody who moves in, and then what else do you have in the house? Do you have any kind of the hobbies in the basement and so on? And we ask about the patient. On that basis, Once we have that kind of the history, then we do the standard workup on the on
But
the
do you
blood.
have any
and
quick,
so-
easy tests? You know, taking this history and all that stuff, I just want to be poked or take my blood and tell me what's wrong with me. Can you do that?
Yeah, well, it depends what you come with, because if you tell me that you just working in the auto industry, or that I find out that you have leaky furnace, I will ask to assess the chemicals in your blood, solvents particularly, or if you expose and work with pesticides, or anyway, I will ask you to have the test for the pesticides, and we may find out these things. But the problem, for example, is that in this country, this this test is not covered by anybody. You have to have your own money to pay for it.
So it is not covered by insurance. So
yes,
that makes you a little bit different too. So.
Yeah, see, this is very different, because if you go to the regular doctors and you have the tests which you have been ordering already, and everybody else ordered them, which are for free, which are given and calling
or insurance
by
companies cover it.
Much easier.
And if those tests are negative, then and you still have the problem, then you are referred to psychiatrist.
Oh, yes.
Right. Oh, because they think you're crazy.
Exactly.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Because they think, well, there's nothing can't be
Well,
anything
no,
wrong
if I
with
can't
you.
figure out what's wrong with it, it must be your problem.
That's right.
So you get a tranquilizer
right.
and you go to the psychiatrist.
So when you eliminate, it sounds like when you do your detective work, you eliminate certain chemicals or molds or whatever it might be that are environmental. Is there anything else that you prescribe
Absolutely.
for them?
We just look at the patient's diet.
Oh, diet.
The diet. That's John's
I
favorite
like
thing.
Diet. Tell me about what you...
Well, anyway, we test people for foods.
Food allergies.
Okay,
Food
for food
allergies.
allergies.
Now, is this again
yes,
blood?
and this
Are we
is,
talking about blood tests?
You can do it by blood, you can do it by skin, and I do it predominantly in my office with the electrodermal screening device, which later on I prove.
What
by
is
the-
that?
This is another one of those non-standard, non-established
Yes.
It's not a scratch test.
doctor quack type
Well, I
test,
do
right?
prick tests, but the prick test for foods is no. You never discover anything on it unless you have anaphylactic reaction to peanut. At that time, you will have it.
Well, we've got to hear
food
much
test.
more about this this test, and I think it'll probably take a few more minutes. So we're going to come right back and find out this information, and we'll ask Dr. Kropp how he got into serious trouble with the medical establishment as well. And all of that is when we continue right after this brief pause. So please stay with us.
Hello, my name is Javier. I learned English. So can you. Watch Hello Channel.
And welcome back. With us is Dr. Joseph Kropp, and Dr. Kropp is an MD, but he's quite a bit outside of the establishment in many, many things that you do. You were telling us a little bit of how you test these folks.
Well, we test them by either needles, okay, and it's
But
we
that's
call it,
controversial.
depending whom you ask.
Yeah, I guess that's right. But, I was trained as a standard medical
Yes,
doctor, so I was
I
taught
was
that
too, and I was at the university, and I was working
Yeah.
I was pediatrician, and I just come here, and I just find out that in order to help the patient, you have to go and explore the other avenues and other roads to the recovery of the patient. Because
Especially if they're
otherwise-
not getting better and they've gone to rounds and rounds of doctors before they've come to you.
Well, that's the whole problem, is that the patients have been seen, the allopathic doctors, they had all the tests, and usually the last doctor they see was the psychiatrist.
Yes.
And so
the
then you
tranquilizers.
have the patient who is desperate, and
Right.
once you take the history, and you have to know how to take that history, because I never have been taught these things in the medical school.
Well, you have to know the right questions.
And then you do the test, depending which one
So
you
you have the
choose.
needle
I
test,
have
what
the needle
else?
test, I have the prick test, I have the electrodermal test, I
Yeah,
have
this is where
sublingual.
they have two wires, and they have a little pan in between, right? And they check the voltage. Now that one, you have to admit, is very controversial and very hard for me to understand.
It's very alternative, maybe.
No, I just,
Complimentary,
well,
as
as
it
a matter of fact, okay, I think that there is, and it's going to be more science into it than at some of the issue which we think that is so well established. And
Well,
so on.
isn't that really the problem that you have as a doctor who steps outside in terms of complementary medicine, is that you haven't put the science into it? You personally, as well as your colleagues in environmental medicine, haven't done the gold standard, the double-blind controlled studies, and published them in the medical journals.
I would say it's quite contrary. Because I have double-blind studies. On the testing which I was mentioning, there is plenty of the double-blind studies.
But I mean, is it
I
published?
think, of course.
Okay.
The only thing is that your opposition is going to have different point of view. And they're going to tell you that this is their test and their method and their approach is right. Your is wrong.
Well, but the study should give you enough backing to make this a legitimate way of practicing.
Scientifically speaking, yes. When you
You're
put
saying
the
this
medicine,
is politics and money?
oh, absolutely yes.
Well, I guess what you do, one of the nice things about what I've heard so far about environmental medicine from you is at least it doesn't sound like you do any harm to people. In other words, you're not administering toxic chemotherapy or doing powerful surgeries to people. You're doing an investigative job and asking them to avoid chemicals that, if your advice is wrong, it's not going to hurt them. If it's right, it could do them a lot of good.
But it's also helping people. If the people
Well,
who are coming to you as a last resort are getting better,
But see,
then
the established
who's to say?
medical profession doesn't believe that, and I just
well,
kind
of
want
course
to know
it
why
doesn't,
they
John,
do.
but that doesn't mean we can't look at it
No,
and
we
explore
can look
it.
at it.
It is alternative. How and so
But
someone
I just want
comes
to know why
you.
he can't get acceptance.
Well, this is the problem that you've had.
Well,
Can you tell us about it?
Usually, to accept anything new takes approximately 40 years. And after a little while, on the beginning, everybody is ridiculing these things. And after a little while, they said, oh, well, we know it. And they become the expert, and you are still pushed aside.
Yes.
And how long have you been practicing
20
this
years.
method? So it's 20 years.
Yeah.
So you have 20 more years.
Yeah, that's right.
But there are people who came before you, Dr. Randolph,
Oh, yes.
Dr. Ray. I mean,
Oh, yes.
there are many pioneers in this that have been doing this for a long, long time. So he's just one of many. You mentioned food, and of course that's one thing I'm very interested in. So I understand not being accepted in terms of the standard medical business because I've been an advocate of eating a healthy diet, which is, it's not something that medical doctors are taught about. What do you think in terms of diet in relation to patients' health? Do you have a standard diet for them? Do you have an investigative approach in terms of diet?
Well, first of all, you are what you eat.
Okay.
And when we look into the patient's problem from the point of view of the foods, we're finding out that usually the foods which you like the most and the food which you eat most often is the one which causes the problem.
So it could be any food. It could be from
It
potatoes
could be
to pork chops.
anything, yes, potatoes through the pork chops, but usually it's the most commonly eaten food like milk,
Why?
the sugar.
Why is that, do you think?
It's a good question. And this is the things which is not understood by the medical establishment because people usually do not recognize this kind of the disorder and they get addicted to food,
Right.
okay? And they eat more and they get more sick. Only
How do you break that addiction?
you have to, first of all, you have to know what to do with these things, okay? You have to figure out which foods the patient is most often.
you do that by
and so-
what?
Absolutely. By the history, then I do test them,
This is
okay?
again blood tests.
Either the blood, either the skin, either the electrodermal, depending, who can afford what, okay? Then, once you have that, you ask them to remove these foods from the diet. It's not very many of them.
Elimination diet.
Elimination diet, okay?
And
Now,
then they
if you
see how they
want
feel.
to prove the connection, okay, you ask the patients, for example, to stop, let's say, drinking coffee or eat sugar or eat milk for about at least 4 or 5 days.
Right.
Totally, okay?
Get the stuff out of the system.
Get it out, okay? And then, on the empty stomach, ask the patients to eat 2 slices of bread or drink a glass of milk and so on. And usually the symptoms which they come to you with, like the headache or just tiredness or something, you're going to get the explosion of the symptoms and then how you prove the cause and relationship. Mind you, the challenge test by foods was very well proven and accepted by the opposition.
Yeah, for many
Oh,
years.
that's
It's
very
been a
interesting. So
standard
it'll really
treatment.
explode, and you can figure it out. It seems very reasonable to me. A
The
process
problem
of elimination.
is this takes a lot of time, and the profit margin is very low.
Right, and no one wants to
so
take the time
that's
like
the
you do.
problem.
But the
doctor.
results are dramatic, and we're going to see that.
Now, don't you go away. We are going to talk with a couple of Dr. Kropp's patients as Dr. McDougall, MD, continues.
Hello.
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 And welcome back. With us we have Dr. Joseph Kropp, MD. A little bit extraordinary, I would say, outside of the standard practice of medicine. And two of his patients, Margaret Kroll and Cindy Bacco. And in fact, Cindy's not a patient. She's the mother of a patient. No, but you were kind of a patient too, aren't you?
I'm a patient as well.
Patient as well, but also the mother. What kind of help did you get from Dr. Kropp?
Oh, well, I've had lots of help from Dr. Kropp, but I guess the most notable time was when I had some wild asthmatic attacks as a reaction to molds in my house. I was moving into a new old house and cleaning the carpets, and I woke up 6 to 8 hours later with these wild asthmatic attacks, and I don't have asthma.
You'd never had them before?
And I'd never had them before, and I've never had them since that period of time. But that's what molds caused to me. And
So did you sell the house?
we found later great patches of molds.
Or you
No,
just cleaned up the mold?
my great husband cleaned it all up, and it's fine now. Yeah.
So you didn't have to take any special tests, any special IV
Oh, yes,
therapies?
yes.
You had
I
to do
ran
that?
to Dr. Kropp, and he wisely gave me some oxygen because he knew that I was going to spiral downwards, probably, which I did.
But that's not standard treatment for asthma unless they get real bad.
Well, I was real bad.
Sounds like it was
And I
pretty
was needing testing for chemicals and inhalants, grasses, trees, and
Why did you go to Dr. Kropp? Had you heard about him before, or had you gone to other doctors
his name
first?
got around, and I needed to go to somebody way back in 1980, and I had a history of chemical sensitivities, but this one event was the worst, I
It must
guess.
have been a big step because your insurance didn't pay for it. You had to pay for it on your own, is that correct?
That's right, but it was better than the alternative, which was not to be here at all.
You stay very sick too.
Yeah.
So your asthma was cured. Can you get around molds these days?
Yes, I'm much, much better thanks to shots.
What do you
and-
think made what was the single or two things that you really think made the biggest difference in her so that she can now get around molds where she couldn't before?
Well, I think that would be what, desensitization?
Yes,
Desensitization.
desensitization.
This is where you give shots?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, there's one thing I want to point out, that you don't really try to get patients back into the bad habits, and so on, because once you're going to clean up the house and improve the diet and all of these things, very often you don't need the medication, you don't need the shots, you don't need any other treatment. But
This is
if
just to get them started a little faster? Is that the idea, that you give the shots just to help them along a little quicker?
Oh, absolutely, yes. And once you stabilize them and so on, then the patient is going to decide on their own if it needs a medication or not.
Dr. Kropp, what did you do to your diet?
Oh, well, he just tested me and suggested these various things that I should avoid and be careful of other things and the ones that were okay. And so those
You
are your
look very
guidelines.
healthy.
Yeah, and you feel
Yeah.
much better now.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, that's
1,000%
great.
better.
How about you, Cindy? What kind of things were you suffering from, and what kind of help did you get?
Actually, it was my daughter who was suffering. That's the original reason that we went to see Dr. Kropp.
But he helped you too, you said.
Yes, he did, yes. I also have allergies, which I guess is where my daughter got them from. But at the time we went to see him, she was the really sick one. So I basically credit Dr. Kropp with saving my daughter's life, really, and giving her a normal...
How bad was she? What were her symptoms? What was
She
happening with her?
she was so bad. She could hardly climb the stairs without stopping to huff and puff and be out of energy. She had so many
What was
infections.
this asthma again?
She had chronic urinary tract infections, bronchitis, asthma, ear infections. She was on antibiotics basically continuously for the first
treat
3 years of her life.
And that was
Yes.
from another doctor.
You
the
took her off the
antibiotics.
milk.
Oh, for sure.
And a lot of other things.
John's
too.
so So you had you taken her to other doctors before you went
Yes,
to Dr.
I had
Kropp and
taken- well, of
and
course,
that's where
to-
she got the antibiotics. And,
I had actually taken her to Sick Children's Hospital in Toronto, and they recommended long-term antibiotic therapy for her. So she was on antibiotics continuously for over a year. And then once the antibiotics stopped, it was a few months, and then bang, she started getting infections back again. So they suggested putting her on the therapy again. And at that point, we were getting really desperate. And we had, we just decided, no, we can't do this anymore. We have to find some
something
other way to
else.
treat her.
And did people think you were crazy? Did your own MDs? What was their response to you, saying, "Oh no, no more antibiotics"?
My own MD thought I was crazy. Yes.
I'm sure.
What does he think
Yes.
now?
He doesn't say anything. He looks at Jamie
Isn't that
and
amazing?
he
Let me
looks
guess.
at her and he says, she's very healthy now. She looks
Whatever
really
you're
good.
doing, just keep doing it.
Yes,
That's
I would
what they say. Yeah,
that's
you know, they
That's
say-
right.
Don't
Yeah.
tell me about
Don't
it.
tell me about
That's
it.
right. I don't want to know about it. Don't tell me what you did, but it worked. I guess
Right.
that's
Now, how long
Right.
has she been well?
She's been well now for 4 years, I guess.
years.
She was 3.5 when I first took her to Dr. Kropp, and she's 8.5 now. So
So
5
many
years.
I want to
Parents do
mention
that.
one thing. She
Yes.
did not believe me on the beginning also.
Ah, so it was a leap of faith
no,
for you.
You know what? It was because when you go to going to regular doctors, going to Sick Kids, which is one of the greatest hospitals in Toronto or Canada, you're conditioned to believe what doctors tell you. So if they tell you your child needs antibiotics, you just believe them. And I'd say going to Dr. Kropp too was a big educational process for us as well.
For these desperate people out there, and there are a lot of our viewers who are in the same situation that these two women were, how do they find an environmental doctor?
Usually word of mouth.
Are they listed in the yellow pages under environmental medicine? Is there a society that?
Yeah, there is the Canadian Society for Environmental
and,
Medicine.
the United States Society for
And,
Environmental Medicine?
There is, of course, there's American Academy of Environmental
Academy.
Medicine, when we get the basic training in environmental medicine, and you get, credits for your courses, and then
I bet they could find you on the internet, couldn't they?
Maybe, but not from the. I don't advertise really my
No,
practice.
but they could find the American Academy of
Oh, for
Environmental
sure they
Medicine,
can.
the Canadian Academy of
We're gonna-
Environmental Medicine.
That's
Great.
a very good point. We are going to be right back, and we'll continue our conversations with Dr. Kropp and his patients. So stay tuned. Right after these messages, we'll be back.
Thanks for watching Hello Channel. Learn the language of the internet, travel, commerce, and diplomacy. Watch Hello Channel and learn English. Do it for yourself.
I've always been very healthy, and I think attitude is 9/10 of the battle in anything in life.
And welcome back. We have an addition. We have Jamie McDougall here, and you're one of the main reasons that we're here, because you got better. How are you feeling now?
Really healthy and good.
And what kind of things, kind of strange things do you have to do to stay that way?
On a special diet, and I have to take syrups at night and pills in the morning, and calcium before I go to bed.
And you're feeling much better now? Do you remember before?
A little bit. A little bit.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're feeling better. Thank you so
Yeah,
much
thanks for coming out
being
and joining
here
us.
with us and sharing your stories with us. It's so important.
Thanks, all of you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
And bye-bye.